Okay, so the first thing, I'm going to replaster these walls. Just a few areas where it looks like it's got a crack. There's a few cracks in the corner there. And generally I just want to clean it up a little bit. So we'll be preparing this ready for plastering. We'll put the beads on and then we'll PVA it and then we'll start plastering. I'm going to leave the inside cheeks for now until we get these new curtains. We're going to get these replaced, going to change the blinds. But we don't want to rip them down yet, so we're going to leave this. We're going to bead it so we can go into it. But for now, just going to put the beads on, PVA, and then get going. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is set the beads out. So I'm just running the top corner bead here, running along the pillar. That's simple enough. You just take your measure, and I'm using just standard clout nails to fix it in place. So that's no big deal. Again, it's just making sure that you run the top first, so then when we do run the stop bead, we know where to stop and where we know where to run it to. I've done the right side, but I find it so hard to measure for the stop bead, especially with the curve. So what I do is just put it in place, run it in situ, and then kind of cut it longer than what it should be at first. So what I did is take the just over where the beads meets, cut it there, and then what I do is run it up again when I've got the shape, and then cut it so I get the exact same position. So instead of trying to use a tape measure around a curve, just run it in situ. There's no point using a tape, it'll flip bend. Just literally plant the bead up in where you want it and then cut it in place. The other thing is, like I said, I am plastering the cheeks here, so all I'm doing is making sure I've got enough depth on them stop bead, so then when I do run my plaster to the edge, it's going to finish nicely. So we'll have the front to plaster, which is what I'm going to show you now, how to form a curve, but we're also going to make sure that we plaster towards that depth of the bead on the edge there. So again, nothing crazy, it's just making sure you create the curve before you fix it, and then just cut it in situ rather than doing it with measurement. Okay, so we want to put a bit of bonding to form the curve before we actually start plastering, and that's for two reasons. There's going to be quite a thickness now on the stop bead where you tried to curve it around the existing curve already. So you want to do is build it out of a bit of bonding first, build out the thickness. You don't want to get it all with skim, you'll struggle. And there's another reason which I'll show you later on when it actually comes to plastering, and that's the more important reason. But for now, just follow the curve of the ceiling existing there, and just try and follow the bead that you've already placed. Now when you are starting to form curves or curving with your trowel, you just want to follow the existing shape that's there. You don't want to force it. You want to have quite a flexible wrist and let the trowel follow the ceiling or the existing wall and let the trowel do the work. You don't want to force it. I always find it helps to go both ways as well. See, it's forming that. As you can see, we're forming that curve. And that just gets rid of any thickness that you might have acquired on stop bead there. Again, I'm going to add a bit more. A little bit more to go. Right, so I've got the curve on, pack the bead out. Now what I want to do is PVA it. Wait for the bonding to dry, then we'll PVA the whole surface, ready for plastering. Now a quick tip when you're PVAing, I like to PVA it when it's just drying. So you don't want it to fully dry, because what you can do is use the PVA and a brush to curve the bonding even more. It just makes it a bit smoother, so you can smooth out any high spots. Just gently brush it, following the curve, and you can really smooth out that curve, get rid of any lumps, any high spots, and use a brush to give it a nice smooth curve right along there. Sometimes hard to get that curve with the trowel. Like you can see maybe a few ridges where the trowel's caught. The brush just helps smooth them out, make them even more of a rounded shape. It's a very good tip. Just whilst the bonding's setting, just quickly, gently use a brush to follow that curve. Okay, so PVA'd, it's completely dry, PVA all the wall and the bonding. Now it's time for application now. This is what I mentioned before when I was doing the bonding coat. It's just about following what's already there. So, starting from the left, following the bead. You kind of got to loosen your wrist up really. And what you will find, you'll use a lot more plaster on the curve. So what you want to do is come up, come back down. I always find you get a smoother curve when you come both ways. So do that again, I'll come up, and come back down. What you don't want, and it's very easy to do, you don't want too much plaster on the curve. So you don't want to, it's very easy by doing the curve motion to leave a lot of plaster onto that area, but you don't really want too much, because what can happen, the surface underneath it's very wet because it's a thicker layer, and then it'll start sliding when you apply your second coat, which is why we also use the bonding. When you bond the curve beforehand, the bonding will set the first coat a bit faster, which means when it comes to applying your second coat, that first coat is set. It's going to be a lot firmer than the rest of the wall, which allows you then to put your second coat on without that curve sliding. It's very easy when you do plastering without the bonding beforehand. The plaster, the first coat will just slide underneath itself, and you'll lose that curve, and you'll start getting ripples. Ripples will start showing through. Where if you do the bonding beforehand, it'll dry that first coat out. So let's finish it off. Again, don't worry if there's any ripples. Just follow that curve. I've got the wall next to me on plastering also, so we've got a wet angle here, which can be tricky. But again, I don't recommend doing wet angles on a curve if you're new to it. I'll do the bottom now. I'm using Catnick stop beads. They're very good. They're a lot thicker than your standard B&Q ones. They're very durable. I find the B&Q or the standard cheap stop beads very flimsy. These are solid bits of kit. So we've got to apply the first coat. And then go through the process now to get that curve perfect. Right, I'm going to use a speed skim to flatten it. Now that's for one of two reasons. One, again, to dry the curve a little bit. Speed skim, because it's a plastic blade, it doesn't bring the moisture to the surface, which means it can dry the plaster out a bit faster than if you were using a steel trowel. So, not only that, but I find the speed skim is very good for the curves. It follows it nicely, and it allows a bit of flex, which means it will follow it. So, flatten it. And immediately apply the second coat. So I'm using the same mix. It's my house, it's a Sunday. I don't want to work forever, so I'm using the same mix, but it has gone off quite fast, to be fair. It's very hot in this room, but that's not a bad thing. If the plaster's thicker, it allows a bit more body when you're doing the curve. It's a bit thicker, so it'll hold itself. Again, what I'm talking about, if you put too much plaster on, it'll sag and it will slip and you'll start losing the curve. So again, now what we're doing now is just making sure we're filling it out. What you will see from the first coat when you flatten, there'll be a few dips. Again, there's a little bit of a shortage of plaster there. Put some more on. That's what you want to watch out for. I've just caught the trowel just off the curve. So you don't want to do that too many times because it'll show. It'll basically leave a mark. And if you catch it too many times, especially when you start flattening, you'll struggle to get that line out. So be careful for that. It's just allowing the trowel to follow the curve. Loose wrist. Again, filling in any low spots. You'll feel it. You're just following that curve. No pressure. Just allowing your wrist to do the work. That's it. Again, watching out for that wet angle there. There we go. I'll just fill in that corner. So that's the curve done. And basically now, just plaster the rest of the wall. But now we've just got to leave it for a little bit. Let that set. Don't play with it. The worst thing you want to do is you play with the plaster. You need to let it set now. You need to let that curve take up a little bit. You don't want to keep playing with it because, like I said, you'll move it. You want the plaster to start to adhere to the wall now. So I'll finish plastering the rest of this. And we'll come back in a minute. Another flatten with a speed skim. Gets that curve really nice now. I'm going to wet that curve. Again, the bonding's allowing it to dry. And really start to polish it up now. A little bit there. Because it's drying, it's allowing you to put a lot of pressure now on that curve, pushing it in, which allows you to form it. Close the angle up as well. Now what you want to watch out for is make sure at this stage your trowel doesn't catch and dig into the curve. So if we do it at this stage, you won't be able to fill it without seeing it in the future. So really be careful with your wrist, make sure you're following the contours of the wall and you're not digging into it. Quickly. Cup of tea and a croissant courtesy of the wife. Thank you very much. Right, so now we've got most of it smoothed off, it's flattened. What I'm going to do is deal with this wet angle where we've got the two walls meeting the plaster. This is a Ragney corner trowel. It's the thicker one, it's the thickest one they do actually, but to me this is probably the best Twitcher on the market. Twitcher is a corner trowel, by the way. It just does the job. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It doesn't leave lines. It is an absolute beast. I don't use them very often, but when we've got a curve like this, they're perfect. So I'm going to wet that up now. Pushing hard. Just squeeze the angle in there. Just getting that very tight angle, push it again, and there we go. That is that corner sorted. So now, back onto the curve. And at this point, it's quite hard now, the plaster's taken up. So again, I'm going to drench that curve and just polish it up. There we go. Putting a lot of pressure in at this point. Bit of a dip there. Again, we're just following that curve with your trowel, just smoothing it off nicely. Don't play with your corners, we've got that with a twitcher. Just that angle there. And then, we're nearly there with it, so I'm going to complete the rest of it. I'm going to go straight into the wet trowel. Okay, wet trowel. This is a beauty now of using a flexi trowel. This will literally just glide and follow that curve nicely, allow you to get a really nice finish. So, very simple, water, and we're going to go all the way up this time, curve off to the top, all the way up, curve off. And that flexi now, really filling in that curve, giving it a beautiful flat polish. And there we go. Give it one run with the plastic trowel after this. And then that's it. Easy. Final stage, this is a Rafina Plasiflex plastic trowel, and again perfect for these curves because it'll just follow the contours of that wall with no problem at all. So you literally just all the way up, back down, just fill it in that curve nicely. And there we go. That is how you plaster a curved wall. If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Really appreciate it. And then you can follow us on the rest of our plastering. We're going to continue doing this room, by the way. It's my bedroom. Got a few more videos coming for this. But if you want to learn the full process of plastering, as in the full mix, the full process, we'll give you an opportunity to go into timings. All you need to do is sign up to our free welcome course for Plastering for Beginners. The link's below, or there should be something around here. Basically, that's the fastest way for a beginner to get into the world of plastering and learn it completely. So like I said, thanks so much for watching, really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.